Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Delaware, and from wherever you sit. I'm Ellen Bernhardt, the Director of the Jewish Community Relations Committee of the Jewish Federation of Delaware, and it's a pleasure to see all of you here this evening and to be together. We have over 600 people registered for this candidates forum. That's the largest attendance that we've ever had. So perhaps there's some benefit to being on Zoom technology, even though we'd much rather be together. Before we actually start the candidates forum, I would like to pause for a moment of silence in memory of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. May her memory be for a blessing. I'd now like to turn the program over to Jennifer Steinberg, the chair of the Jewish Community Relations Committee. Jen.
Thank you, Rabbi Bernhardt. Good evening, all. My name is Jennifer Steinberg, and on behalf of the Jewish Federation of Delaware and the Jewish Community Relations Committee, I am excited to welcome all of you to the 2020 Candidates Forum. This event is held every general election year after our September primary, and it provides, I think, a truly unique opportunity for our community to engage with candidates for Delaware statewide and federal offices. This year and every year, it is very important for our candidates and elected officials to hear directly from the Jewish community during the election season and beyond. The mission, for those of you who don't know, of the Jewish Federation of Delaware is to mobilize the Jewish community to address issues, meet needs, and build an agenda for the future. Federation brings Jewish people together in a community coalition grounded in Jewish teaching and heritage. Together, we strengthen the state of Israel, the global Jewish family, and local organizations to further the survival of the Jewish people. A thank you, of course, to our Jewish Federation Delaware President, Richard Levine, our CEO, Seth Kasten, and JCRC Director, Rabbi Ellen Bernhardt, for all you do for and on behalf of the Jewish people every day. Thank you to Michael Sigmund, as always, for moderating this exciting event. And a huge thank you to Nicole Terranova for her work behind the scenes to make this event happen from a technology perspective this year. If you are physically able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I would like to introduce Sylvia Wagman, the Hadassah chair of this year's Candidates Forum. Sylvia?
Sylvia, please unmute.
Gotcha. Thank you, Jen. Welcome to the 2020 Candidates Forum. It's a pleasure to be here to represent Hadassah. Hadassah and the Jewish Federation of Delaware have been co-sponsoring this forum for more than 36 years. Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America, is a volunteer organization that inspires a passion for and a commitment to the land, the people, and the future of Israel. Through education, advocacy, and youth development, and its support of medical care and research, including development of treatments and vaccines for COVID-19, at Hadassah Medical Organization, Hadassah enhances the health and lives of people in Israel, in the United States, and worldwide. Hadassah's 2 world-class medical centers provide advanced medical care to all, regardless of race, ethnicity, or nationality. We focus on connecting and empowering the over 300,000 Hadassah women in the U.S. to effect change, advancing health and well-being of women worldwide. And now let's get our forum underway. Michael Sigmund is our moderator tonight, making his 7th consecutive appearance volunteering with us. In addition to his work with some of the largest companies in the world, Michael counsels a number of nonprofit agencies. He is a member of the Jewish Voice Advisory Board and a former co-vice president of education and youth engagement at Congregation Beth Shalom. Michael is currently a board member of the Delaware Public Media, which is dedicated to local news reporting and news reporting and featuring national public radio programming in Delaware. Michael became known to many of you and perhaps some of the candidates on this panel as the anchor and news director of Delaware's Channel 2 First State News. He was also the primetime evening news anchor for TSM News, news producer at WHYY-TV 12, and an anchor and reporter at WILM News Radio. It is my pleasure to welcome back Michael Sigman.
Sylvia, I want to thank you very much for that very kind introduction and for allowing me to serve as your moderator once again for the Candidates Forum. I also want to thank Jen Steinberg for her comments tonight. How many times have you heard this year that this is a very, very tough year? Unprecedented. And we faced a dilemma. Do we have this Candidates Forum when we can't be here in person, or do we go for this format and make sure we have the opportunity to have all of the candidates express their views to you? We decided to have this because we decided that even a pandemic should not stop the Candidates Forum from taking place. Usually I quip every couple of years. I look out at you and I say, you look terrific. Stay the same way. You look great. And I wish I could be there with you to see you and to say the same thing to you. And I really do hope that you and your family stay well and continue to be healthy during this time. Now, I also have to tell you that by going virtual as we are right now, you really don't have the opportunity to enjoy the refreshments that we usually have afterwards. But I can tell you that there is an advantage, because if you still want the snacks after, you can go to your own pantry and you're guaranteed to find exactly what you want. Let me tell you more about this very special evening. This is a chance for all of you to hear the ideas, the thoughts, understand what the candidates want to be able to share with you and how they're vying for your votes this fall. And it's really important for you to listen and to share and to ask and understand that even though we have very controversial topics that we will be covering tonight, they're usually done in a very civil way here in Delaware and in a way that's going to be constructive for you, the voter. I want to, first of all, congratulate all of the candidates for getting past the primary season and now wish you the best of luck in the upcoming election. This event always runs very smoothly because of the great cooperation between the organizers of the event and all of the campaigns. And all of the campaigns have already received the rules for the evening, but I think it's very important for me to share some of them with you, the viewer, so you know exactly how the evening is going to be structured. All the qualifying candidates or their representatives will have the opportunity for an opening statement. That opening statement will be limited to 3 minutes. Then there will be a closing statement that is limited to 2 minutes. And I will let you know that the order of the opening and closing statements was determined by a coin toss prior to tonight's program. The time in between the opening statement and the closing statement is dedicated to you and your questions. And I want to tell you a little bit about how that questioning is going to work tonight. Only questions that have been submitted prior to this evening's program, the ones that you submitted when you registered, or the questions that you now have access to through the Q&A box on your computer, and questions from the moderator will be allowed in tonight's forum. The questions can be directed to either one of the candidates or to both of the candidates in that particular office. Please be assured that I will allow the other candidate to, of course, have a rebuttal. The answers to the question and the rebuttal are limited to 1 minute. As the moderator, I have the ability to ask or to continue on a theme or to ask a follow-up question. And of course, I will let the opposing candidate have a rebuttal there as well. I do want to mention that 1 minute is not a long time. and we do have a number of very important issues to address tonight. So first of all, the timing is important, but on some of these issues, I will go for another round, and I may ask the question a different way, and of course, I will give all of the candidates the opportunity to have a rebuttal. Just a word about the timing to the candidates. All of your answers and your opening and closing statements are carefully timed, as they need to be. We want to be fair to everyone. So I'm going to ask the candidates, please, to keep an eye on your timing and make sure that you do follow and stop on time. I really don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to put your microphone on mute. I really want the audience tonight to pay close attention to the actual issues and not to let timing be the issue that we discussed tonight. The goal of this evening is to have a good time, to learn things, and to be a much more educated voter at the end of the evening. It's now time to begin our forum and to start with the opening statements. The candidates will deliver their opening statements in federal to state descending order, and we will begin with the candidates for the United States Senate. And the order is, the first opening statement comes from Senator Chris Coons.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. It's great to once again be with you. And I'd like to thank Hadassah, the Jewish Federation of Delaware, and the Jewish Community Relations Committee for hosting this wonderful event, and to everyone who's logged on virtually from across our state. This event kicks off the general election season, cycle after cycle, and I'm so honored to once again be with you, although this year virtually. Let me start by first joining you, as you have opened the evening, with a moment of reflection on the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed on Rosh Hashanah, marking her as a tzaddik. She dictated to her granddaughter her dying wish that the voters would choose our next president, and that next president choose her successor. And I will work tirelessly in the Senate on your behalf to try and achieve that goal. Although she was diminutive, she was a giant in the law, and I am inspired by her record of fighting tirelessly for gender equity and for justice. And may her memory be for a blessing for all of us. Tonight, our nation's in the midst of three crises: a public health pandemic, the worst public health crisis we've had in a century, and because of a bungled response by the Trump administration, a recession, the worst we've seen since the Great Depression. And as well, because of the brutal killing of George Floyd, millions of Americans have taken to the streets to peacefully protest and demand that we address long unresolved matters of racial justice. All three of these issues, the pandemic, the recession, and concerns about racial justice, are reminders of why I first got into public service, the things that called me to run for county office, and the record I've established working here in the United States Senate. I am Chris Coons, and I'm your United States Senator. And in the decade I've had the blessing of representing you here in Washington, I've had the experiences of helping with the response to the Ebola pandemic and working on other public health challenges. In county government and here in the Senate, I've worked tirelessly on the response, both to the 08-09 recession and now this most recent recession. As a member of the Small Business Committee and the Appropriations Committee, I've literally had a hand in crafting trillions of dollars of support for our small businesses, our nonprofits, our health community, our schools, that's tried to help sustain our economy and get us through this together. Let me close by just saying that I truly look forward to this candidate forum tonight. I'm hopeful that we can model for our state the sort of civility and mutual respect I've tried to bring to my service in county government and here in the Senate. And I know that if I'm blessed to have your vote and to be returned for another 6-year term, that I'll keep bringing the humility, the dedication, and the tireless effort to represent Delaware's best and Delaware's values that I've dedicated so far to your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coons. The next opening statement for the United States Senate comes from Ms. Lauren Witzke.
Hi, everybody. First off, thank you to the Jewish Federation of Delaware. Thank you to Hadassah for hosting me. Hadassah, I believe, is for Esther, which is my favorite book in the Bible. So thank you so much. So my name is Lauren Witzke. I'm running for U.S. Senate. I'm running against Senator Coons this year. I'm running on an America First, Restoring the Family platform. So a little bit of Goldie Beacom College graduate. So I'm a Delaware girl through and through. I love my state. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to run for office in my state as well. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what America First means to me. I've been running on a 10-year moratorium on all immigration, netting at zero, since January when I launched my campaign. The reasoning for this is because we are currently bringing in not only 1 million illegal aliens a year, we also have 1.1 million legal immigrants coming into our nation per year. People don't understand that a merit-based system does not currently exist in the United States. We have to build a merit-based system. That means we're bringing in anybody, bringing in people who are currently bringing drugs across our southern border, and people that are coming in 100% legally. We're bringing in cartel members. And as a result, we have had a mass epidemic in opioid abuse. I'm really passionate about addressing the opioid crisis, which is devastated the state of Delaware. I'm in recovery myself, so I'm very passionate about recovery. I'm very passionate about restoring the American family that has been desecrated by opioid abuse. You know, it's affecting everybody. I don't think you're going to meet a family in the state of Delaware who has not been affected by opioid abuse. So I'm really passionate about tackling this issue and presenting real recovery solutions for specifically also Delawareans. You know, I will be able to use my political influence to ensure that the state of Delaware is taken care of as well. I'm also running on a Restore the American Nuclear Family platform. Right now, we currently have a welfare system that incentivizes the breakdown of the nuclear family. I'd like to make those incentives available to incentivize marriage and children. We had the same thing happen over in Hungary 2 years ago, and as a result, they saw a 100% increase in marriages and 9% increase in childbirth. So, you know, people do indeed respond to incentives. And if we're able to incentivize marriage and family, we will, as a result, have a restoration of the American family. As you all know, I'm extremely pro-life, and I'm extremely pro-Second Amendment, as written in the Constitution, shall not be infringed. Also, though, I'm very pro-American worker. I'm a pro-union Republican as well. You know, for years, the American worker has been displaced in the workforce by cheap foreign labor. H-1B visas are out of control to the point that young Americans are having to compete against cheap foreign labor for jobs. As a result, mass migration is pushing our wages down. All of these, it always comes back to immigration. We have to restore our immigration system. We have to restore
Thank you very much.
our
Sorry,
American
time is up.
families.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It is now time to go to the opening statements for the candidates for Congress. We turn first to Republican Lee Murphy. Okay, Lee, I'm sorry. We're going to ask you to please unmute and have you start again. Let's start the timer again. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity tonight at this debate. I'd like to wish everybody a very happy and sweet New Year for all those that are celebrating the new year. My name is Lee Murphy, and I'm the Republican candidate for the United States Congress. You know, I've lived in Delaware my entire adult life. I've raised a family here in Delaware. I've taught school for many years. I started a career, I worked on the railroad for 35 years. I started as a track laborer. I moved up the ranks to a locomotive engineer. I enjoyed my career as a train engineer. But I really want to cut to the heart of why I'm running for the United States Congress. In 2014, I lost my daughter, Christy. Christy battled drug addiction her entire life. I walked with her as she battled addiction. She struggled and struggled. We went from rehab to rehab. She got the treatment that she needed. She turned her life around and she became a successful businesswoman. She raised a family. Addiction is something that touches all the families in our state and nationwide. We lose someone to addiction every 22 hours in our state. I will go to Washington. There are $6 billion allocated to fight addiction in this country. I have a two-pronged approach. On the front end, I will put funds in prevention. On the back end, we will have long-term facilities for those addicts who need treatment. This is a problem that many talk about, few do anything about it. I will go to Washington. I will do something about it. It needs to be done now. I look forward to the debate tonight and for the audience to get to know me better.
All right, thank you very much. Our next opening statement comes from Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester.
Good evening. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to Michael for moderating this forum, and thank you to the Jewish Federation of Delaware and Hadassah for putting on tonight's event. I too want to pause and remember Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and also my colleague, John Lewis, as well as Sonny Sloan, who is not with us today. But their memories are seared in our hearts, and they inspire us to continue to fight. 4 years ago, when the people of Delaware granted me the professional honor of my life to represent you in Congress, I made a pledge that when I went to Washington, we all go to Washington. 2 sessions of Congress, thousands of votes, countless trips on Amtrak later, it has been my honor to represent all of you. When I first ran for office in 2016, I couldn't have imagined the political world I'd encounter in Washington. My philosophy was simple: problem solve and come together to make progress where we can. Fight for what we believe in when we can't, and always act with love and keep Delaware values at the center of everything I do. In the process, I was able to fight for Delaware's farmers, work to protect our natural lands and environment, stand up for social justice, and improve healthcare for all. I worked across the aisle to create the first of its kind Future Work Caucus, to not only focus on maintaining good paying jobs right here at home, but ensuring that our workers are prepared for the economy of tomorrow. And I tirelessly worked to hold an administration unwilling or unable to do their job accountable. When this pandemic struck, I immediately got to work securing personal protective equipment for Delaware hospitals, support for small businesses, and resources for our local governments. And when our nation witnessed the shocking murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and too many more, I marched with our neighbors and legislated with my colleagues. Our country has reached an inflection point. We can choose to continue down the path of petty partisan politics, the path where much is argued but little is accomplished, the path of Donald Trump's Republican Party, or we can choose a better path of politics that are focused on people, one that builds bridges and not walls, and one that brings Delaware's values to Washington. I've been proud of all we've accomplished in these past 4 years, but there's so much more to do. And I'm asking for your vote because despite all that's transpired these 4 years, I still hold on to my firm belief that when we come together, work hard, and fight for common values, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. I'm asking for your vote because when Lisa goes to Washington, I can say without a doubt, we all go to Washington.
Thank you very much, Representative Blunt Rochester. I appreciate that. And we now move to the candidates for state office, and we turn to the candidates for governor. And our first opening statement comes from Democrat Governor John Carney.
Good evening, everyone. I'm your Governor, John Carney. I too would like to start by acknowledging the loss of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, otherwise known to all of us as RBG. She was such a fierce defender of our most basic values of equality and equal justice under the law, especially equality for women. We will continue to honor her legacy. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Jewish Federation of Delaware, the Jewish Community Relations Committee, and Hadassah for hosting this forum once again. The last few times we've been together have been under more challenging circumstances, so it is really nice to be here with all of you for this conversation tonight. For me, this year, like all of us, has been anything but ordinary. Since March, as your governor, I've been focusing on confronting the threat of COVID-19, telling Delawareans the truth, and leading our state through this unprecedented crisis. We have focused first and foremost on protecting all Delaware families, and it hasn't been easy. More than 600 Delawareans have lost their lives to COVID-19, each one a precious life with family members and friends. Make no mistake, this virus can cause serious illness and worse, especially among our most vulnerable friends and neighbors. And that's why we've taken COVID-19 very seriously. That's why we've listened to the public health experts and trusted in the science. Here's the good news. The vast majority of Delawareans have also taken the threat of COVID-19 seriously. In March and April, the people of our state pulled together and stayed home when our region became a COVID-19 hotspot. That response saved lives. Delawareans have worn masks because they know it's a small sacrifice to protect their neighbors. They know that we need a healthy community in order to have a strong economy. But people have suffered in order to slow the spread. Small businesses have lost revenue. Working Delaware families lost jobs and income. And every story I hear breaks my heart. It's my obligation as governor to support those families who have sacrificed so much. And that's why we put in place new efforts using federal funding from our congressional delegation to support Delaware's small businesses, to provide assistance to nonprofits and get workers trained for the jobs of the future as the economy recovers. As we move forward, let's continue to support our healthcare professionals, our first responders, and other frontline workers who are getting us through this crisis. This has been an unusual year for sure, but I've seen so many Delawareans follow the lead of essential workers and come together for the common good. And I know that we'll get through this, and we'll get through this only if we work together. Thank you for the opportunity, the privilege to serve as your governor, and I look forward to your questions tonight.
All right, thank you very much, Governor. We go now to the next candidate for governor, Republican Julianne Murray, for her opening statement.
Thank you very much. I want to make sure that I've got a good sound check. And I thank the Jewish Federation and Hadassah, as the other speakers have, for hosting this. It's quite an opportunity. And to give the opportunity to introduce myself and give some insight into who I am and what I'm about. So I want to do a little bit of biography and say that I am 50 years old. I am married. I live in Seaford. I have no children. I am a dog mom. I have 5 dogs. Educationally, I graduated from the University of Arizona. I had an academic scholarship, graduated in 1992 with a bachelor's in human resource management. 16 years later, at the age of 38, I went to law school. I went to Widener University, which is now called the Delaware Law School, graduated in 2011 and opened my own firm in 2012. I am currently the managing partner of the law firm Murray, Phillips & Gay, and so I am a small business owner, which means that I have actually signed the back of a check as well as the front of a check. I entered this race because Delaware needs a fresh start so that all may prosper. We need to get rid of career politicians like Governor Carney that are beholden to special interests and have lost touch with the citizens. I'm here because I want to bring Delaware's economy back. People don't realize that Delaware was predicted to have a recession in 2020 even before COVID-19. We had almost zero growth, and our median household income went down from $72,000 to $58,000. We have chased big business out of the state with high taxes and high energy costs and high regulations. Governor Carney's shutdown has destroyed small businesses. As many as 30% are not going to reopen. That number is still growing as they are struggling through phase 2. I'm here to be the voice for the small businesses that were shut down with no recourse and were left on the vine to die. I'm here because I want to keep our streets safe. We can't have looters and rioters above the law. We need to back our law enforcement. I'm here for the parents who have were given no option to send their children back to school full time, who have had to make the decision and the hard choice of whether to work or to stay home to supervise remote learning. I'm here for the students who want to go back to school and back to a normal life. I'm here for the teachers. I'm here to defend and follow the US Constitution and the Delaware Constitution. Governor Carney has single-handedly shut down this state and is keeping us in phase 2 indefinitely. We have been subjected to an unconstitutional power grab. I am a political outsider that cares about the forgotten citizens of Delaware and wants to get us back on the right path. I'm fully prepared to answer any questions that you have, and I look forward to giving each of you a sense of who I am. I thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Murray. I appreciate that. And we now turn to the candidates for Lieutenant Governor. The first opening statement comes from Republican Danielle Hall.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for hosting this important event. I really am excited to be able to contribute to the conversation and what my views are. I moved to Delaware when I was the ripe old age of 3 in 1973, when my father was stationed at Dover Air Force Base. I have subsequently raised my own family here. I'm a graduate of Caesar Rodney High School. I hold an MBA with a concentration in finance from Wilmington University. I am an Air Force Gulf War era veteran. I served also as program specialist for the U.S. Department of Labor for Veterans Employment and Training Services. My fun fact is that I am the mother of 10 beautiful children. 6 of them, I'm happy to say, have emancipated themselves from my wallet. I have 4 full-timers still at home. 2 are in elementary school and 2 are in high school. 2 of my sons now proudly also carry on the family legacy of service in the Air Force. 1 is active duty and stationed in Georgia, and 1 is a member of the National Guard here in Newcastle. I also have a small business. I am a general contractor, and I have many affiliations with different boards and community organizations where I serve as a board member on some and as an active member in others. I have also served as the first vice president for the central branch of the NAACP. I'm the current president of the Frederick Douglass Foundation. I have strong beliefs that we need to make sure that we solidly educate our children as a key of their success. I'm running on a platform of effective government. Well, what do you mean by that? Effective government, in my eyes, means that we have metrics and measurable outcomes, that we can see the efficacy and transparency in government spending, and that we create impactful policy to address socioeconomically distressed communities. I'm a firm believer that as a member of several marginalized communities, that a lot of Delaware policy does not effectively address the concerns of the forgotten and the overlooked here in the state of Delaware. I'd also like to see us have an equitable education system. As a mother of 10 children, I have had firsthand experience with our public education system, and I've seen firsthand where we've met with successes and where we could tweak things so that the kids are coming out college ready and career ready. We have an alarming statistic that 40% of our children are coming out of our schools not reading on grade level, and that's
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry, time is up. We appreciate it. Thank you. It's time now to go to the next candidate for Lieutenant Governor, and that is the Lieutenant Governor, Democrat Bethany Hall Long.
Well, good evening. As everyone else has stated, we really do enjoy being with our friends from the Jewish Federation of Delaware, the Jewish Relations Committee, and Hadassah. It has been a lot more fun in years past when we were gathered together. As my colleague alongside with Governor Carney and others, I've enjoyed really serving the last 4 years. When I came to you in 2016, I talked about a stronger, healthier Delaware for all Delawareans to prosper. And when I talk about that stronger, healthy side, it wasn't just our physical health, it's been about our emotional well-being and our economic well-being. And I've really worked hard over the past 4 years as a public health nurse, a professor, a mom, really trying to bring that servant leadership to what I deliver in the community. And it started with a family of faith, and coming from a father with a pastor background and a husband who's a military veteran. We all serve to whom much is given, much is expected. So whether I've been spending time working in the front lines, addressing addiction and battling problems of behavioral health, whether it's children with autism, or seniors with Alzheimer's, we are fighting together because no one's health should matter despite your zip code. Good quality health care, being out on the streets during COVID in my PPE, screening mentally ill, screening the homeless, I saw those inequities. In working with many of you here, I've worked to create health equity, really champion the Lieutenant Governor's Challenge. And I want to give a shout out to your sister agency, the Jewish Family Services. You all stepped up and you helped. You created a hotline when individuals were suffering during COVID, and I thank you for that. Chairing nationally, the National Lieutenant Governors Association, we are all having eyes on Delaware. Folks are looking at what we are doing right to protect our citizens. They are looking at us for healthy communities, but also how we are building and keeping a strong economy while respecting the challenge around civil unrest and injustice, making sure we have a system that works for all, that addresses equity. And as chair nationally of the STEM movement, we are making sure that our young children and our teachers not only have that pipeline to good economy and education, but also that we are preparing for the future. I know as a professor with a virtual classroom, the challenges we have faced, and we're going to continue to work hard to protect our families. And it's really crucial during this time that we have those opportunities with STEM, with the workplace. And I want to close with one of my favorite comments from our late Justice Ginsburg. To make life better for all people who are less fortunate is what a meaningful life is about. If you continue to stand and behind me, re-elect me, I will put first all persons and continue to do so that everyone matters. And again, I just thank you for tonight. I really look forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Time now for the candidates for Insurance Commissioner. Our first opening statement comes from Commissioner Trinidad Navarro.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to Hadassah and the Jewish Federation of America for hosting this event as well. Over the past 4 years, we've worked hard to protect, educate, and advocate for consumers, and we've delivered great results. Working with the General Assembly, we passed more than a dozen consumer bills that helped people when they really need it the most. And I will say that those bills were consumer-friendly bills, and as the state's only Latino and Native American statewide elected official, I'm very proud that one of those laws put an end to methods of premium pricing that were outright discriminatory. We codified protections of the Affordable Care Act. We decreased market rates twice and implemented mental health and substance abuse coverage requirements. And this year, health insurers are giving more than $21 million back to Delawareans and small businesses. Our Medicare Assistance Bureau has helped tens of thousands of seniors navigate enrollment. Currently, we're working on building an office of value-based healthcare to emphasize primary preventative care while making it more affordable and accessible for all. We're also taking steps to regulate the multi-billion-dollar pharmacy benefit management industry, all while regulating insurance companies, conducting examinations on their practices and financing, fighting fraud and insurance scams, and helping people get the dollars they deserve when they need to file a claim. And we've made progress, and we've made consumer protection the cornerstone of this department once again. But consumers are facing more challenges now more than ever, and our work is far from over. In recent months, our office has worked day and night to respond to the pandemic, making sure that testing is an essential health benefit covered by insurers, and that the cost of care is not a barrier to those in need of it. We've worked to ensure that telemedicine is accessible to residents and providers alike. We pushed auto insurers who recognize reduced driving, resulting in millions of dollars in return premiums to Delawareans. We've worked with the governor to ensure that those who have experienced financial distress due to the impacts of the coronavirus wouldn't have their policies canceled for non-payment. Then, when Tropical Storm Hadassah came, bringing tornadoes along with it, we helped hundreds of people get the repairs they deserve and made sure insurers are living up to their end of the bargain, all while protecting residents from would-be scam artists. As COVID-19 continues across the country and the impacts of climate change show up in our flooded basements, we need strong, experienced leadership to face these challenges. And I'm the man for the job. I appreciate you having me here today, and I look forward to a robust discussion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Navarro. Appreciate that. And it's time now for our final opening statement of the evening. It comes from the Republican candidate for Insurance Commissioner, Dr. Julia Pillsbury.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Julia Pillsbury. I'm a pediatrician in Dover, Delaware. I've never been involved in politics. So why this time? And why insurance commissioner? I began my career as a nurse and then as a doctor in the Army and in the Air Force. My husband likewise served in the military as a dentist. For 30 years, I have run my own medical practice in Dover as a pediatrician. The most important insurance any family needs is coverage for their medical needs. I know firsthand the difficulties of assuring that families receive fair coverage because I have been an aggressive advocate fighting for my patients. I can tell you hundreds of families' stories having to fight insurance companies to pay their medical bills. The hours on the phone, the bureaucracy, the stress on whether a critically needed procedure will be approved. I will be the same advocate for the people of Delaware to hold insurance companies accountable. Delaware's insurance commissioner licenses and approves the insurance policies sold here, the rates, the deductibles, and the coverage provided. Insurance companies cannot sell any policy in Delaware without the insurance commissioner's approval. Premiums continue to rise, deductibles increase, and the insurance company red tape haunts families in need of care. As a professional, I have worked on the American Medical Association's key committees, which establish the fair practices and rates for doctors. I know that medical insurance rate increases aren't going to doctors or hospitals. They're going to insurance companies whose profits have soared. In Delaware, competition and choice has been essentially eliminated. There is only one provider. That must change. One example of how this non-competition directly harms the Delaware patient is an insurance company practice that I've testified about in the legislature. The policies of this insurance monopoly meant that some patients could not afford to go to their longtime doctor because those doctors would not be paid at the same rate as Medicare patients. This has to change. I'll bring my professional knowledge to make those rates fair. I will bring back competition so that Delawareans have a real choice. I've served my country and I'm ready to serve the citizens of Delaware. Thank you.
Dr. Pillsbury, thank you very much for that opening statement. And now we're going to be going right away to the questions for the candidates. And I do want to thank all of you, by the way. The Q&A box is filling up and the questions are coming into me. There are lots that were provided prior to the program today and many more questions coming in. So I really thank you. I'm going to try to get to as many of them as I can. Let me start out right away with the questions, with a question for the candidates for United States Senate. We discussed already the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and almost immediately discussion began on a successor and to fill her seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. So the question, I'd like to start off first with Republican Lauren Witzke and ask if you could explain to us what is the rationale for confirming a nominee for the Supreme Court with just weeks before the presidential election, when the same Senate leadership in 2016 refused to confirm President Obama's choice to the High Court, and that vacancy existed 7 months before the election. So if you could handle that, please, for 1 minute, and then Senator Coons will have a rebuttal.
So it is their constitutional duty to nominate and confirm a new Supreme Court justice. Now, I can't speak for the establishment GOP back in 2016, but I can answer for the question now. And we must fill that seat. It is our constitutional duty to secure and fill that seat immediately.
And Senator Coons, you have a minute.
Thank you, Michael. As I've been saying here in the Senate, as we've been casting votes this week, we should honor Justice Ginsburg's dying wish. 4 years ago, the Republican majority insisted on refusing to take a vote, to have hearings, or even to meet with President Obama's nominee to fill the vacancy created when former Justice Scalia passed in February. At that point, there were 10 months to an election. Right now, there's 42 days. And in 25 states, voting has already started. It's the only previous time in our history that there's been this little time before a presidential election. Abraham Lincoln was then president, and he declined to nominate someone to fill the seat, instead trusting the voters. That's what we should do. We should honor Justice Ginsburg's dying wish.
I apologize for that. Thank you for that. I do want to stay with this topic for just a moment because this was this week's news, and I want to go back to Lauren Witzke just for a moment. As you know, following the death of Justice Ginsburg, your campaign posted a meme. It was shared by your campaign on the Twitter account. And although the meme has since been removed, do you stand by what the meme said?
Yes, my campaign posted a meme and I stand by it. You know, the meme was removed actually because I received death threats from far left radicals threatening to come and kill my family and doxing my address. So nobody ever really wants to seem to talk about this, or the fact that, you know, it is Senator Coons' job to confirm the Supreme Court justice. What are we going to have? Another Brett Kavanaugh circus like we had last year, like 2 years ago? Like, this is our constitutional duty. It doesn't matter. It just goes to show that Ruth Bader Ginsburg completely misinterpreted the Constitution, declaring that she wants to wait for Joe Biden to be in office in order for her to be confirmed. And that is not what is in the Constitution. That was her only job, was to interpret and protect the Constitution, and they're absolutely neglecting it. And, you know, I would encourage Senator Coons to do his job and confirm the nominee that President Trump puts up. Like, we have to do this. It is part of your job and your constitutional duty, despite any dying wish of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
All right, thank you very much. Senator Coons, your rebuttal, please.
The reason that we should honor Justice Ginsburg's dying wish is not simply because it was her wish, but because she understood the Constitution deeply. She recognizes the fragility of the Supreme Court and its legitimacy. And she knows that on the ballot this fall is the Affordable Care Act and the future of healthcare in this country. Just a week after the election, the Supreme Court will hear a case in which President Trump and 18 Republican state attorneys general will try to withdraw from women across this country gender equity protections from the ACA, healthcare access for those with pre-existing conditions, which touches on 100 million Americans, and access to health insurance for 20 million Americans through the exchanges. She knew that a partisan political exercise jamming through this nominee just days before the election would risk further dividing the Senate and our nation. And frankly, that's why I look forward to doing my job and my duty, as I have as a member of the Judiciary Committee for 10 years, and weighing carefully and giving advice and consent to whoever is nominated after the election.
Thank you, Senator Coons. I'm going to ask you one more. I'm going to go to you first and then have Ms. Witzke just follow up here. The discussion abounds now. Is there a way to delay the vote? Do Senate Democrats have a way to delay the vote? Are you actively pursuing a delay of this vote on a replacement? Of course, we don't know who the replacement nominee would be.
Well, Michael, there are two of my colleagues, Republicans, Senators Collins and Murkowski, who've already announced that they think that the Republican majority should live by the precedent that they set 4 years ago. As Senator Murkowski said, fair is fair. If 4 years ago we declined to consider a nominee during an election year, we should do the same this year. I'm going to keep working to see if I can persuade two others. I had dinner with a Republican colleague last night to have a detailed conversation about this. And I'll remind you that Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg, despite their great differences in their judicial philosophies and their politics, were actually close personal friends. I think through persuasion, there may yet be a path to avoid what will otherwise be a very divisive confirmation fight in just a few days before the election. I'm also reminding my colleagues, we haven't delivered a Senate relief package for the pandemic in 6 months. We should turn our attention to doing that work together rather than a rushed confirmation.
Thank you, Senator. Ms. Witzke, your rebuttal, please.
Yeah, so despite anybody's feelings, it is the constitutional, it is in the Constitution, it is your constitutional duty to confirm the Supreme Court justice. You know, this brings me right back to this Kavanaugh hearings, which Chris Coons made into a giant circus. That is what is going to happen again this year. Chris Coons only seems to work across the aisle when it means coming across and getting his interests, the Democrat interests. And we have to be able to secure a Supreme Court justice because it is in our Constitution, despite whatever opinion he may have about it, whatever agenda they may have, it doesn't matter. It is our constitutional duty. It doesn't matter what death wish Ruth Bader Ginsburg had. It is very clear in the Constitution. And I'm going to challenge him to uphold that. Who, by the way, during the Brett Kavanaugh hearing said it was Brett Kavanaugh's job to prove that he was innocent. What kind of, that just absolutely shows that you just misinterpret the Constitution altogether and you neglect due process. And that is what we're going to see again this year. And I'm out of time.
Thank you very much. And I really do appreciate you honoring the time periods, candidates, because we're going to get a lot of questions in if we do that. Because I do want to mention to everyone watching that Representative Blunt Rochester had to go to a vote. I think it's something important like keeping the government open. So we're going to let her go and do that. And then, and I promise, Mr. Murphy, we're going to come back to your category, to your questions in just a moment. I'd like to turn to the governor's race. And let me, obviously, everyone's made mention of this very, very difficult year and the pandemic. And I'm going to ask Governor Carney, has your response to COVID-19 actually made you vulnerable this election? We know there was a Democratic primary and a crowded GOP primary, and we're going to ask you to answer that, and then we'll listen to Ms. Murray. Governor Carney, please. Please make sure you unmute.
Yes, sorry about that. First of all, politics really never entered my mind as we made decisions over the last 6 months to keep Delawareans safe. This was unprecedented territory, uncharted waters, if you will, with no playbook going into it. And so as governor, it was my responsibility to bring our public health team together, to seek out the best public health and science behind the decisions we were making. We followed the recommendations of the CDC as we shut down after the first case was identified at the University of Delaware back on March the 11th, and we gradually shut down sectors of the economy because the Centers for Disease Control were telling us that's the way you contain a virus. If you look at our response and you compare it to other states, you could argue that our response was much more effective than states in our region, and certainly more effective than states that did not follow the science and did not follow the recommendations of the CDC.
All right, thank you, Governor. Time is up for now. We go to Julianne Murray, please, for your rebuttal.
To hit the unmute, and thank you. And if I'm allowed, please call me Julianne. I think that I think politics absolutely played a role in what happened here, and I do think that Governor Carney is vulnerable. When you look at how this rolled out, and you look at the businesses, the essential versus the non-essential businesses, and the fact that big business was allowed to be open. The big box stores were allowed to be open, who coincidentally have lobbyists and are able to push their special interests, and small businesses that had similar vocations, a furniture store, a clothing store, were shut down because they were not a big box store. So I think politics absolutely had something. It may have started out as a public health thing, but politics absolutely played into it, and in my opinion is continuing to play into it while we are sitting here in phase 2 and are not moving forward. And so small businesses are trying to struggle to get through this, and people are trying to kind of get back to life.
All right, well, thank you. And I'm going to go back to you.
I might just clarify a point, and that is simply this.
Governor, you'll have a chance in just a second, because
Okay.
I want to go back
Sorry,
to
Michael.
I want to go back to Julianne Murray for just a moment. So what is your recommendation? When should we go into a phase 3? What would be, the governor mentioned that he was using science as his gauge for this. When do you think we should go into phase 3? And then the governor will have his chance to respond.
I think we should be open now. Frankly, I think that the whole conversation about stopping the spread of the virus needs to be shifting to stopping the spread of the fear. We need to be looking at our hospitalizations and our deaths here in Delaware, not at the positive test results. And we are out of balance. We need to be reopened. People have to get back to life. We have learned a lot through this. People are more careful. Hygiene is better. People are social distancing and doing those things. I think that it's time to let responsible people act responsibly. And so I think we should be open now.
Governor?
Yeah, just let's be clear on the CDC recommendations, and that is that they recommended that states not reopen their economies, and most states turned them down, whether they had Democrat or Republican governors, but to wait until you had improving conditions on the ground in terms of the spread of the virus for 14 continuous days. And we did that. We did that phase 1, phase 2. We continued to improve. As we got to the end of phase 3, the cases shot up because people weren't following the guidance, mostly at the beach, bars, and restaurants. All you need to do is compare the success of the states that followed the guidelines and those like Arizona, Texas, and Florida with Republican governors who did what Ms. Murray's suggesting. They had a terrible rebound in cases. They've had to fight their way back. And if you listen to them today, they sound like they're talking and singing off of our songbook. They're doing the right thing. They're following the signs. They're following the signs that they hear from the White House call on a weekly basis that the Vice President heads up with all the experts from CDC and NIH.
Well, thank you very much, Governor. And I think at this point, we're going to get all the candidates involved from running for all offices here, because we're all Delawareans and we're all dealing with COVID. So the question is going to be, should there be a national mask mandate? Should we have to wear masks in public as a way to perhaps get the economy going again all around? So let's start off with Dr. Pillsbury, and you are a doctor, so you get to go and start off first. Go ahead. Make sure you unmute. Thank you.
I did. Thank you. I honestly don't see a problem with people wearing masks. And I think having a national policy to wear a mask may help the situation. We know that it's transmitted. We know how it's transmitted. And I think there's no problem with the mask. I think some of the other restrictions are too restrictive and unnecessary. But I think it's been well documented that wearing the mask is a useful item.
All right, Trinidad Navarro, national mask mandate?
Absolutely. I know the Trump administration had funding to do this very early on within the first couple months of the pandemic. And because of politics, they decided not to do this. They decided to downplay how serious this pandemic really is. And as a consequence, hundreds of thousands of people died. So I know some people make the argument that it's against their rights to make them or force them to wear masks, but it's not so much about them that we're worried about protecting. We're worried about protecting our most vulnerable, our seniors, our people who have pre-existing conditions. And even the president himself mentioned that this is affecting our younger kids as well. And we know that there's a likelihood that they're super spreaders. So yeah, I think a national mandate for wearing masks is appropriate and should be done.
Next comment from Danielle Hall.
Please forgive me for going over my time. I now have a panoramic view so I can see the 1 minute and the 30-second timer. Governor Carney, I felt your pain when you had to be abruptly stopped. So I really don't have a problem with the wearing of the mask. Certainly, if it's a very minimally invasive thing for people to wear the mask. I'm a small business owner. I'm in contact with people all throughout the course of my day. And so to protect myself and protect my family from bringing it home, it's just a very minimally invasive thing to do. And I really don't see a problem in a national mandate for masks.
Thank you. And I do have a score sheet here, so I just want to, and some of you may not. So again, Danielle Hall is the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor. And now to the Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor, the current office holder there, Bethany Hall Long. National mandate?
Yes, as a doctorate in public health and epidemiology, we are facing a pandemic. No vaccination, no treatment. 3 W's, wear your mask, watch your distance, washing your hands. Common ways to protect. Chairing and co-chairing the pandemic resurgence here in Delaware at our governor's request. I have to say to you, when we bring in national experts, we've talked to our United States Surgeon General. This is the most common thing that we can do to save lives. So I absolutely encourage everyone to wear the mask. It's painless. I say this final comment, I'm a health provider. You're not wearing a mask puts all of us in the front line. All of our frontline essential workers, our EMTs, our nurses, our doctors have died. Little things we can do to protect our community. And so thank you for those of you who are doing the right thing and standing up as a community. Together we'll get through this, and we're going to have a better time if we do this. Thank you.
We go now to the candidates for Governor, Julianne Murray.
I'm going to rock everybody's world and say no. I think that a federal mask mandate is unconstitutional. I think that I have talked to healthcare providers who have said that the masks in the current form, where you're not having to wear the N95 mask, is essentially a chain link fence, and I'm trying to keep a mosquito from going through a chain link fence. I think we need to be looking at the deaths in Delaware, and that's where we need to be focused. And I'm actually going to read something here. I'm admitting I'm reading something, and it's from the Pennsylvania decision that came out this week from Judge Stickman. And it says, the national crisis can never be permitted to supersede the commitment to individual liberty that stands as the foundation of the American experiment. We have individual rights, and a national mandate is absolutely contrary to our individual liberties.
All right, thank you very much. And Governor Carney.
Yeah, I would say we need to follow the science, as we have from the very beginning. And the science has changed on mask wearing from day one back in early March. And what it is now is that the strongest recommendation to prevent the spread of the virus is for people to wear masks. And it's not so much to protect the mask wearer, it's to protect everybody else. And so you're wearing a mask in respect to the health and life of your neighbors, your family members, those you love, particularly in vulnerable populations. The science would not justify a mandate to wear masks in certain areas of the country. And so I think we need to be smart enough to have the discretion to have mandates where it's needed. In Delaware, in very many places, it's required. We have differences of just at the beach and on the boardwalk. Do I think that works better? I think that it does, because you have a better chance of getting people to follow you. Leadership during a pandemic requires you to get people to follow what you're saying.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, sir. We now go to the candidates for Congress. Lee Murphy, you get your chance now. Welcome.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to rock the boat too. I say no on face mask. And someone that had COVID back in March, myself, I wore a mask when nobody else was wearing any mask to protect other people. Now, this wearing a mask, I don't know what Governor Carney, I don't know what scientific information he has at his fingertips, but this is an infringement on people's personal rights. I think we have to give people credit in our society to make their own decisions, whether they're a threat to somebody else because they have COVID, or they should be able to make the decisions. People in our society should make those health decisions, not a governor. We don't even have a state legislature now legislating any of this. So I say personal freedom first, and no to a national mandate for masks. Individual freedom first. And the scientific evidence is out on masks, quite frankly.
All right, thank you very much. Now the candidates for U.S. Senate. We'll start with Ms. Lauren Witzke.
Right. So I don't have a problem with people if they want to wear a mask. However, I vehemently oppose a mask mandate. I think ordinary Americans are going to be wondering why, per CDC guidelines, it's okay. You don't have to wear a mask. You can't catch COVID if you're rioting and looting in the streets. However, we are forced to wear masks if we go sit down in a restaurant. I think the CDC also has failed to give us guidance on the rapid overdose rates that are a portion and a result of the excessive COVID-19 lockdown measures, which have been excessive since the beginning, to the point that American small businesses have shut down and will never open again. Americans cannot feed their families. And this party has completely just disregarded and lost touch with the ordinary people, but put mask mandates, have put shutdown mandates on us where people can't send their kids to school. And you know what? You're creating more drug addicts when they can't play their sports. That is what you are creating. You are creating a depressed and fearful generation. So no, I vehemently oppose.
All right, well, thank you very much. And Chris Coons.
Thank you, Michael. First, I just want to say that as our Lieutenant Governor said, the simple 3 guidances that we've gotten from the NIH, from CDC, from a wide range of public health experts is that if we wear masks, wash our hands, and watch our distance, we can have a significant impact on this pandemic. It shouldn't have to come to a national mask wearing mandate, but frankly, now that 200,000 Americans have died and more than 6 million have been infected, we may need a national mask mandate for a few weeks to simply get a handle on this out of control pandemic, which keeps reemerging and keeps reemerging. I respect Governor Carney's leadership. He's followed the science and he's imposed those shutdown orders and mask requirements where essential for our public health. So frankly, I think when we balance individual liberty and public health, all of us, as a matter of civic duty, should voluntarily wear masks. But given the bungled federal response and the failure to really get a handle on this, it may require a temporary national mask mandate.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Coons. I want to turn the questioning now, and we're going to take a different direction. We'll probably come back to this because it's a very important topic for our state. But I do want to talk about yet another important topic for the state, and I'm going to bring in the candidates for Lieutenant Governor. And I'm going to ask the question, and then we'll go to both candidates. And the question is, as you travel around Delaware and observe its fragile ecosystem, what do you believe the state needs to do to protect the environment here? And along with that, a tag-on question, do you believe in climate change? And we start off with Danielle Hall.
Unmuted successfully. So as I've traveled around the state and talked to a number of people over the last couple of years, one of the reigning issues here environmentally is our water. The biggest discussion that I've heard is the conversation surrounding our poultry industry and the nitrates in the soil that result in the contamination of our wells. And so that has had a very disproportionate effect on communities of color. It's something that is very bothersome to me that in some of those communities that they are more affected than others. And so that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Do I believe in climate change? Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long.
Yes, certainly believe in climate change and the ways that we need to improve. Having spent almost 16 years in the General Assembly, serving both in the House and Senate on the environmental committees, I have seen firsthand, not only in my travels as Lieutenant Governor, the issues not only of inequity and environmental justice, whether it's clean water, clean air. I've had the opportunity when Governor Carney was Lieutenant Governor and I was in the House that we targeted improvements in our environment, not only from our farmland preservation and open space, but to saving lives and addressing inequities, particularly around areas where we had cancer and pollution and cancer clusters. It's really important that we get it right. Our children, our future relies on that. And I know the team here, our U.S. Senator, our Congresswoman have worked really hard to make sure we have environmental standards and protections in place. Final thing I'll say, over 1,000 pieces of bills when I sponsored in the General Assembly, many of them were around environmental health, protections, getting rid of BPA and dangerous chemicals that affect our children. So very much into environmental health.
Thank you very much. I want to, one of the candidates for during the opening statement said that we're dealing with public health issues, recession, and racial justice. If we can add a fourth in there, it would probably be a very violent hurricane season, which is causing a lot of damage in many parts of the country. So I'd like to ask the insurance commissioner candidates the same issue. Do you believe in climate change? But also, what impact might that have on the insurance companies that are under your purview? So let's begin with Trinidad Navarro, please.
Well, I will say that climate change is real. We have participated in a number of exercises with our local folks in DEMA to address some of these issues with respect to flood insurance. You see the storms are coming more rapid. You mentioned yourself the hurricanes. Within the last few months, we've had tornadoes in our state that caused catastrophic damage to several homes. So yes, what we can do to address that is look at things like locations that are flooding now that are nowhere near a body of water. The locations where people who lived in places like Hadassah, where the water was so deep it actually and powerful was pushing off the storm drains. So people need to insure their properties with flood insurance, even though they're not near bodies of water. We're working with some local companies to bring flood insurance to Delaware because the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance, is broke.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, turning now to Dr. Pillsbury. You have a minute rebuttal, please. Please unmute.
I'm trying. All right. Having property insurance is very important, and having adequate property insurance is critical. And as Trinidad has identified, there are areas that didn't experience flooding and didn't know they needed flood insurance that probably do. And I think we need to look at the insurance industry. We need to look at the benefits that are available to the consumer and make sure that they're going to meet the needs of the typical Delawarean.
Thank you very much. I also want to let everyone know that Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester has now returned. Vote is in. Everything's good? Yes, okay. So I'm going to go to a question now for the candidates for the U.S. House. And we're going to have to go back to the Supreme Court for just a moment because this past week, Lisa Blunt Rochester, you know, Speaker Pelosi mentioned that she was threatening to impeach the president over possibly nominating a new justice for the Supreme Court after the passing of Justice Ginsburg. Do you think that that's a valid argument to be using at this point?
Well, first of all, I want to say that we as a country are watching what our leaders do. And so while the Republicans in the Senate have made commitments in the past about what is right and just, it seems that they are going back on their word. And I think that what the speaker is saying is that she is keeping all options on the table, and that really is the plan. But I think ultimately, America's watching. Do we keep our word? Do we uphold the traditions of our Constitution? And so I think she is basically saying she's keeping all options on the table.
Now turning to Lee Murphy, please.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. I'd say for 3.5 years, 4 years, we've had investigations, impeachment, based on absolutely no evidence. This move by Speaker Pelosi is just another move to bring our president down. She has no authority to do this. She may have the authority, but it's not in the best interest of our country. As a citizen of this country and as somebody running for Congress, we have to stop the investigations. We have to stop the political theater. Let's get on with the people's business. It's time. We need new leadership in Congress. We need a Republican Congress. We need a Congress that will do the people's work and not the work of one particular party in this country. I'm tired of it.
Well, thank you. And speaking of the people's work, I'm going to now ask the next question. I'm going to ask for the candidates for both the Congress and for the Senate to please react to this. And we know a lot of people, a lot of Delawareans, a lot of Americans are out of work or underemployed because of the economic crisis from the pandemic. So my question to you is, why can't Congress agree on the next round of economic assistance to those financially impacted by the pandemic? I'm going to start with the candidates for the United States Senate first. We'll start off with Senator Chris Coons.
And thanks for the question, Michael. As a member of the Small Business Committee and as the senior Democrat funding the Small Business Administration and its response, I've worked across the aisle to craft the Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP, which has actually delivered funds to literally thousands of Delaware small businesses and nonprofits Senator Rubio and I have worked well together to craft the next round of response, the P4 program. And it's one of the few bipartisan pieces that have been agreed upon every time there's been a negotiation. There remains a large gap between the bill that was passed by the House now months ago, the HEROES Act, and what the White House is willing to accept. Frankly, Majority Leader McConnell has brought forward a very slimmed down proposal, one that included an overly broad liability relief for all employers, regardless of whether they were responsible or irresponsible. Every Democrat voted against it, and we'd hoped that that would kick off a round of negotiations that would deliver a next round of relief. I continue to talk to my colleagues, I did even today, about how we can move this forward past this impasse.
Time's up. Let's go to Lauren Witzke for your rebuttal, please.
Okay, so, you know, we have seen recently that Congress cannot seem to agree on anything. However, you know, as the Democrats are partnering with terrorist organizations like Black Lives Matter, you know, the American workers are suffering. American workers don't have jobs. They can't go to work. They can't afford to feed their families. Small businesses are shut down and they'll never open up again. And Congress can't seem to agree on anything, and they're so busy, the Democrats are actually so busy focused on woke issues and have completely left the American working class behind and lost touch with what is important to us, being able to take care and feed our families as well as provide for our children. So we have to ensure that American workers get to work ASAP, as well as fathers are able to feed their children. Small businesses are able to open to full capacity with no restrictions. And I think that's something that Congress needs to focus on, you know, taking care of the American worker where they have absolutely left them behind. And that's become evident, especially this year.
Thank you very much. We go now to the candidates for Congress. Lee Murphy, would you start off, please?
Yeah, the speakers held up these bills with pork that she has put in. It's really not addressing the American worker or American business at all. She has special interests. She has loaded these bills with pork. The bills are impossible to pass. They cost the American taxpayer millions and billions of dollars. It's time to focus on the Americans that are in need, make these bills specific to their needs, get the help that they need. The businesses are suffering, individuals are suffering. Let's stop playing political games. The speaker is playing political games. Pelosi, Pelosi, Pelosi. It's all about her. We need to focus on everyday Americans and get them the help they need.
Representative Blunt Rochester, your rebuttal, please.
Thank you, Michael. Well, first of all, let's start with the premise that we're in this situation because we're in a health pandemic that is being mismanaged. That's number one. Number two, the House and the Senate did come together in a very overwhelmingly bipartisan way to pass relief, as Senator Coons mentioned, for small businesses, unemployment insurance that was expanded, telehealth, things to ensure that the American people actually did get the resources that they need. And just now, where I just came back from was the floor of the House, where overwhelmingly, as a matter of fact, when I left, the vote was 356 to 55, Democrats and Republicans voting on a continuing resolution. So we do know how to come together. That's why you need to send people like me and Chris back to Washington.
All right, well, thank you. I'm going to move on to a different topic, although it was just mentioned by one of the candidates. We've seen a lot of protests and demonstrations calling for racial justice in the country. One of the candidates just said Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. So let me go around the horn again to all the candidates. Again, we're all Delawareans, and we have people of color in our constituencies. And so the question to all of you is going to be, what are your feelings about Black Lives Matter, and does it differ, the movement from the organization, and do you agree with the characterization that was mentioned earlier? So let me go forward, first of all, with our candidates for Lieutenant Governor. Let's start off with Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long, please.
Yes, nothing more important than justice to me as a public health nurse. We all bleed red. Black Lives Matter. I am pleased to be able to stand and make sure that individuals should not be suffered, whether at the hands of law enforcement, but we need equity in our community. So I proudly support the voices of our communities that have experienced long-term institutional racism and discrimination. I stand for equity and change in the community. That is the moral fabric of someone who comes from a public health background, a Christian background, raised in a family of faith. We have to come together and get rid of rhetoric, labels around groups. Again, we all bleed red. I solidly stand between all people and equity, and I will continue to fight as I have as Lieutenant Governor, as I did in the Senate, and as I did in the House, to make everyone have equitable health, education, and opportunity, and address civil injustice and changes that need to occur in the civil system.
Thank you. Danielle Hall, please.
Successfully unmuted again. The small joys. So with this particular issue, I have had to have very difficult conversations with people about the distinction between the understanding between the organization and the sentiment. And so in order to really have these conversations, I think that we all have to come to the table with a spirit of understanding about the conversation. I think it's important that we are able to address this issue with truth and transparency about each of our experiences, and that we definitely need to understand that systemic racism is real, and that social justice reform does need to happen, and that we all need to come with a spirit of common ground and common solutions to be able to deal with the inequities that exist in our culture.
We're going to go to the candidates for Insurance Commissioner. Same question, your thoughts about Black Lives Matter and what can be done for racial justice here in Delaware. We start off with Commissioner Trinidad Navarro.
Thank you, Michael. You know, I'll tell you that most of you know I was formerly in law enforcement, and the premise of no justice, no peace had a different meaning for me years ago. And I'll tell you, I was enlightened by Senator Cory Booker talking about the tears of his ancestors and how the community as a whole cannot have peace if there's no justice. It doesn't mean that you're rioting and looting. Now, I've participated, like many of the other folks here in this panel, in peaceful demonstrations where we just want to illustrate that there's the inequities in our system, both in law enforcement and in general in our community. I will say, as a Native American, there's some other really great things that came from this, like the Washington Redskins now being the Washington football team. This was a racial slur that was been allowed and promoted for years and years and years. So I too, in my community, have seen the inequities. And
thank you, Commissioner.
I'm a big supporter of Black
Thank you very much. We go now to Dr. Julia Pillsbury.
I have cared for many African-American children, as well as Caucasian and children of other races throughout the years that I've been in practice. And actually, even going back to when I was a teenager during the 60s. I've always been very fair, and I have a strong relationship with all of my patients, regardless of their race. Black Lives Matter is important, but I do feel that some of the protests have gotten a little bit out of hand, and they need to get under a little better control. I think they hurt more than they help. But I very much support equity, and I think that they all deserve to be treated well.
Going now to the candidates for Governor, Julianne Murray.
Thank you. Look, I think everybody was outraged by what happened to George Floyd. But the problem with Black Lives Matter is that it is, in many cases, it is not peaceful protests. It is moved beyond peaceful protests, and it's, you know, we have very angry and violent mobs. That's not constitutionally protected. And, you know, and so, you know, I as governor, am going to stand with law enforcement, and, you know, and I am going to back law enforcement and give them the tools that they need. Now, I know that I'm going to get pushed on this, and what I'm going to say is, if there are bad cops, We have to weed out the bad cops. I do not think we close ranks and protect that, okay? But there's a give and a take that happens here. And, you know, and people can have trust in law enforcement, but we have to trust law enforcement and we have to empower law enforcement. And I think that that is getting lost somewhere in here. And, you know, and that's, you know, I'm going to back law enforcement on this. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Now to God, you know, I'm thinking about getting a T-shirt that says "Please unmute" and then actually, you know, reading it myself. Governor Carney.
Yes, Governor, it hurt my heart to sit with Mayor Purzycki and other leaders in my conference room to hear the anger and the frustration and the grievances that many of the young people, black and white, by the way, came to me as they planned protests in the city of Wilmington. And I felt it was my job to listen, to try to understand, to work with these protesters so that they would do it in a peaceful way. And at the end of the day, they did. And the police chief, kudos to Police Chief Tracy, at the end of the night, walked with the organizers the last couple blocks, and they broke up shortly after that. We made a commitment that night to act on uses of force, and we have done that, to continue to act on community policing and training and body cameras and all the things that are important to improving and increasing, improving the relationship between communities of color and law enforcement in our state. And I'll continue to work on that with members of law enforcement.
Thank you, Governor. All right, thank you. Turning now to the candidates for representative in Congress, we start off with Republican Lee Murphy.
Yes, in regards to Black Lives Matter, you know, let's just call it like it is, all lives matter. Peaceful protest of any kind is acceptable. I've marched in many a peaceful protest all the way back into the 1960s. But when violence and riots and lawlessness and looting take over, that is wrong. The businesses and the individuals that were affected on the Market Street Mall, their interests and concerns are just as important as those concerned people marching. So we need strong law enforcement. There was a recent survey where 81% of Black Americans said they want police protection in their neighborhood. 80% of white Americans in the same survey want that same police protection in their neighborhoods. So it's unacceptable what's going on in America right now, where cities are burning or have burned down. The violence in Portland, for an example.
Thank you, Lee Murphy. Thank you very much. The time's run out. Going now to the candidate, to Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester for your response, please.
This question deserves a lot longer answer, and so I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. First of all, I think we are equating Black Lives Matter with just policing, as we might equate the civil rights movement with eating at a lunch counter. It's bigger than that. The fact that we are even saying terrorist organization, that it is not. John Lewis fought for us to be at this point, and these young people, and to see even an 80-year-old white woman holding a Black Lives Matter sign has given so many other people permission to talk about the deep institutional and structural racism that exists in our country, that anybody who cares about peace, justice, and unity would stand with and stand for. So my position is, no, I don't see it as a terrorist organization. And I'm so proud of all of the individuals, the 90% who have peacefully protested.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Representative. Well, Republican Lauren Witzke, you're the one who started this out, this part of the discussion. So I'm going to go to you for the first response for the candidates for U.S. Senate. Ms. Witzke.
Yeah, so Black Lives Matter, I stand by my statement that it is a terrorist organization. They don't care about Black lives. They leverage Black lives to throw them into the front lines of a race war. If you partner with Black lives, you support defunding our police. You support taking down our historical monuments, which I'm still waiting for us to get back, by the way. I'm still waiting on our Caesar Rodney statue, but also you support BDS. So my question for Senator Coons is, if you know, Black Lives Matter openly supports BDS, you know, how could you march with the same kind of group that supports such institution?
All right, well, I guess you're turning it over to Senator Coons now for his response. Senator Coons, you have 1 minute, please.
Michael, let me make it clear that I think we've been presented with a false choice. All of us are capable of supporting law-abiding activity, of denouncing violence, whether it's the violence of rioting and looting, the violence of vigilantism, or the violence of unjustified police misconduct. And I think we should all come together and support law enforcement, thank them for the risks that they take on our behalf, as a number of us did in speaking at the State Police Academy graduation recently, but also stand up for the change that has to come, for making peaceful and appropriate progress in addressing racial inequalities and racial violence in our country's history, and moving towards a more just and equitable country. As you know, Michael, I've co-sponsored bills to combat the BDS movement. I've always stood for peaceful protest, and I'm someone who has tried to contribute a constructive and positive voice in my service, both in county government and here in the United States Senate.
Thank you very much, Senator. And in my lifetime quest to explain acronyms and initializations, let me let everyone know what BDS is, which is Boycott, Divest, and Sanction Against the State of Israel. So that brings me to the to Representative Rochester, Blunt Rochester. Are you supporting or distancing yourself from Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, who, as you know, has spoken out on behalf of BDS? And do you favor BDS, the boycott, divest, and sanction against Israel?
Well, first of all, you can just look at my record. I've already voted on resolutions against BDS, but I've also been very clear and even working on the most recent resolution to make sure that it clarified that boycotts, divesting, and sanctions are things that have allowed for movements, as I mentioned before. The question about whether I disassociate myself from a colleague, I think also is a false question, and really just a wedge issue. She is a colleague. She will probably continue to be a colleague, and I will continue to work with her.
And now we go to Lee Murphy for your response.
Well, that just said it all by the Congresswoman, that she is a colleague. And I think the last time I saw them together was at the State of the Union, when they sat in one section and protested our president's State of the Union address. So I feel very, it's upsetting that a faction of our United States Congress is really anti-Semitic and supports anti-Semitic measures. This is really concerning to me. And we need to not have that faction of our government in any way, shape, or form advocating this basically hate.
Thank you very much. And I want to turn now on a different topic. And I want to ask Senator Coons, should Delawareans feel secure considering you for the United States Senate when the worst secret in this country and in Delaware is that you are a candidate for Secretary of State in a potential Biden administration? Surely you've heard this. So what are your thoughts on that?
Michael, thank you for the question. In my decade on the Foreign Relations Committee, I've worked tirelessly to advocate for Delaware's interests and for our nation's interests around the world. And I am one of the earliest and strongest supporters, although we have a great delegation. Congresswoman Blunt Rochester has also played a central role in the campaign, and Governor Carney has long been a friend and supporter of the vice president's, but I think I've been one of his most vocal supporters in the United States Senate. It is my expectation that if elected, I will serve another term in the United States Senate. But if the vice president, former vice president, were elected president and asked me to take on a different role, I would seriously consider doing so. I'll do what I believe is in the best interest of the people of Delaware, and I welcome input from my constituents as I weigh that decision going forward.
Lauren Witzke, your rebuttal, please.
So you know, it comes as no surprise to me that Senator Coons would use a stepping stone for power as the people of Delaware are continued to be neglected. While we just hit a record high in overdoses, he's working hard to secure his power even further up the line. By the way, like, I don't even know where Joe Biden is. Is he still in his basement? You know, this is something that we have, this is the most important election year that we are going to ever have. It is open borders versus secured borders. It's mass immigration versus restricted immigration. It's putting American workers first for jobs, or it is being displaced by cheap foreign labor. It's also, you know, having the opioid epidemic completely neglected. That is what is at stake this year. And, you know, it just comes as no surprise to me that Senator Coons would use his position as a stepping stone as opposed to taking care of the people that initially elected him to take care of us and look out for us. He has not protected us. He has focused on his own interests while we have been neglected. And out of time.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for noticing the stop sign. Appreciate it. I want to ask the candidates for Congress, does President Trump's successes in having Arab countries normalize relations with Israel make it difficult to convince Jews to switch to a Democratic administration from the Trump administration? So let me start off with Representative Lisa Blunt-Rochester.
Was your question, does the most recent agreement make it difficult for Jews to, that was your question?
No, let me clarify it again.
Yes, or let me just answer.
All right.
That I think Jewish people are like everybody else in America, that they're looking at this pandemic, they're looking at their ability to save their businesses and their jobs. They want us to have peace in the Middle East because it is important to our country. And so I think that they are going to judge Joe Biden like they would any other incredible candidate based on, number one, what he's done, number two, what he says he's going to do, and number three, the vision that he has for America. I think the answer is pretty easy,
Lee Murphy, please, your rebuttal.
Well, first of all, it's a great agreement that President Trump orchestrated between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain. I think this agreement, quite frankly, will, whatever your background is, whatever nationality, whatever your ethnic background, sure, people around the world and in the United States will want to vote for President Trump. It was a fantastic peace deal that he put together. It will increase competition and economic activity in the Middle East. It will put more pressure on our enemy, Iran, in the Middle East. It was a great move on the president's part. And to answer your question, yes, I hope more Jewish people will vote for the president based on that peace deal in the Middle East.
All right, thank you very much, Lee Murphy. We're going to go to yet another question where we go around the horn. This may, given the time, may be the last question that we can get in this evening, because we also want to leave time for your closing statements. We'll see how it goes. If you don't use all the time, maybe we'll have a little bit more, but here we go. Let's start off with the candidate for Senate, Lauren Witzke. And I want to ask you, what is your understanding of QAnon, and do you believe it to be true?
Okay, so from what I understand about QAnon is that it's just a bunch of people who want pedophiles held accountable. And, you know, from what I understand, it's absolutely harmless. And it's just people who want sex traffickers and pedophiles held accountable. My best friend actually followed QAnon really closely, and she bought me a t-shirt that I wore. But you know what? The biggest issue of this is now she's dead. She died during the COVID-19 lockdowns due to overdose, because she relapsed, because she couldn't handle the COVID-19 excessive lockdown measures. And, you know, that is still the bigger issue than chasing some conspiracy theory that people say. So it's really important that we keep focused on the issues that are important and, you know, and honor her memory. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Coons, please.
Thank you, Michael. I think it's important for folks to do their homework and do their research and to look into the things that they support and advocate for. There's a number of candidates now running for office across the country who've spoken up in support of or affiliated themselves with QAnon. And the FBI has deemed it a dangerous organization, a potentially domestic terrorist organization, that isn't just talking about holding accountable sex traffickers, but is suggesting, advocating, that President Trump is actually taking on a secret global cabal of cannibalists and pedophiles. It's an extreme theory that is without basis in fact or reality, and is exactly the sort of thing that folks who have previously supported it or suggested it's harmless, like my opponent, should research and denounce and make clear that they don't support. That'd be an important contribution to this debate tonight and to moving us forward.
Thank you, Senator Coons. We go to the candidates for the House of Representatives. We start off
I'd
with.
like to respond to that. I'd like to respond to that.
I'm sorry, Ms. Witzke. We have to go to the other candidates, please.
Okay.
So let's go to Representative Blunt Rochester.
I would like to associate myself with the comments of Senator Coons and everything he said about QAnon. I think the most important thing is that it's dangerous. It's dangerous to put out false information. It's dangerous to incite. This is no time in our country's history for this. And so I would just echo what the senator said and encourage people to do your research, to find the answers, and to not fall prey, unfortunately, to individuals that are just trying to tear us apart, all for power.
Thank you very much. Lee Murphy, your rebuttal, please.
Yes, QAnon, it's controversial. It was hijacked by those who want to do ill will, and I really feel it needs to be avoided.
Okay, obviously you want more questions to come tonight. Thank you very much. We go now to the candidates for governor, Republican Julianne Murray.
I have this look on my face because I know very little about QAnon. I mean, it sounds like it's, I'm not for pedophiles, so if it has something to do with that, I know very little about it. But this look is because I think we've got bigger issues here in Delaware that we need to be talking about instead of QAnon. I mean, we are in an economic catastrophe right now in Delaware, and so I would like to be able to answer it, but I know so little about it. So I'm going to spend a couple of seconds here and say I think that we need to be focused on, at least Governor Carney and I need to be talking about Delaware and how to make Delaware better, and I don't see where QAnon fits in on that.
Very good. And Governor Carney, your turn now. Please unmute.
Unmute. Unmute.
You're still muted, sir. There we go. Okay.
Maybe it was muted because I said I think I agree with my opponent on that. We have much more important issues to deal with. I haven't taken the time to think about a crazy conspiracy theory like that. I've had my head down trying to protect Delawareans, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do with respect to our response to COVID-19, trying to figure out that balance, that delicate balance between the health of the community and the strength of our economy. Very difficult decisions that we've had to make over the last 7 months. And we've made them talking to different business sectors, talk to the mayors in each of the towns once a week. I talk to the hospital leadership, and we've done well by working our way through this. But the only way we're going to work our way through this is not through conspiracy theories. It's by bringing people together. And I agree with my colleague, my successor in the House of Representatives in terms of the need for people to bring folks together here and leaders who will do that. And I intend to do that.
Thank you, Governor. We go now to the candidates for Lieutenant Governor, and we'll start off with Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long.
I think as was echoed before, QAnon, there isn't time to talk about right-wing conspiracies this evening. I came here prepared tonight to talk about the things that really matter to our families. And again, really much committed to making sure that we are protecting Delawareans, not only during COVID, but all the time. So absolutely do not fall for right-wing conspiracy.
Danielle.
Well, I think that I could also agree with my opponent that we have more important things to think about. And one of my major concerns right now that I've been very laser focused on is the fact that our children are having a very difficult time with remote learning, and the equitable achievement gap is growing wider and wider and wider in this environment. I would really like for us to focus on how we address those kinds of issues, on how we're going to catch our children up on the back end of a COVID environment, and to speak to the PPP issue that was brought up earlier. I also am a small business owner, and I would like for us to have some careful consideration about our small businesses who do not have relationships with lending partners that have perished as a result of not being able to effectively access PPP resources or even the relief grant, Governor Carney. That's very difficult. I applied for it myself and waiting for 3 weeks now.
All right, thank you very much, Danielle Hall. We go to the candidates for Insurance Commissioner, and we start off with Commissioner Trinidad Navarro.
Thank you, Michael. I just think it's nonsense. I don't prescribe to any of these right-wing theories. I really don't know a whole lot about it other than it's dangerous and it's led to people's deaths. So I'd rather talk about some of the topics we had earlier and some of the things we've done at the Department of Insurance to address redlining and racial injustices when it comes to auto premiums, when it comes to how insurance companies use factors that are unfairly discriminatory, like credit score and zip code and age and other things like that, that we've addressed in my first year in my administration. It's kind of other commissions across the country are looking into this because it's long overdue, but this is something we did over 3 years ago, and it's something I'm very proud of.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And finally, Dr. Julia Pillsbury.
I also don't know very much about QAnon. I have worked with children who have been abused for many, many years, and I am very much opposed to it. But I cannot support what I've heard of QAnon. And so that's it. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. And at this point, we've come to the point in our forum where we listen to our closing statements. It went very, very quickly. We actually had about an hour and 10 minutes of questioning. So I want to really thank all of our candidates for taking those questions and making us and getting us on time. So here we go with our closing statements now. And the way we do this is we're going to go in reverse order, the order that we started in. We're going to start off with the candidates for Insurance Commissioner. And the first closing statement is going to come from Republican Julia Pillsbury.
Thank you.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. The insurance commissioner, with great political fanfare, announced that he had secured a refund of $21.5 million in excess premiums paid by individuals and small businesses. What the insurance commissioner is not telling you, that means that individuals and small businesses over a year ago paid $21.5 million more than they should have. This is exactly what I've been saying. We need a professional medical person who can prevent insurance companies from charging higher premiums in the first place. His claim of securing these refunds is just political stunt. That's why I never have been involved in politics until I decided to fight to prevent Delawareans being overcharged for medical coverage. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And we go to the next closing statement, which comes from Insurance Commissioner Trinidad Navarro. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Michael. And thanks for the opportunity to talk to you all today. I know putting together events like this is a tall task, but I'm grateful for you for promoting civic engagement and voting. It's more important now than ever before. I'm running for re-election because I believe I am the person who can best protect, educate, advocate for consumers, and I've successfully done so as the insurance commissioner. I have a track record of serving residents of our state, creating cost savings, increasing insurance access, and holding companies accountable. I believe that I can continue to deliver excellent service while confronting new insurance challenges. With the health and economic impacts of COVID-19, affecting all of us, and climate change creating more weather events in our state, strong, experienced leadership is needed. And I do appreciate your time, and I hope that you'll consider learning more about my campaign at trinidad-navarro.com.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We go now to the closing statements for the candidates for Lieutenant Governor. And the first closing statement comes from Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long.
Great. Well, I want to thank you this evening. I know we are in the midst of the high holiday. What a time of service. And we think about Justice Ginsburg and service to our community. Service is what has delivered and brought me forward, not only as a nurse, public health provider, professor, but also as a state rep and senator, and now as your lieutenant governor, and worked really hard over the past 4 years with Governor Carney to implement changes that impact our economy, our education system, and also to be boots on the ground during this COVID pandemic. Well, I've chaired the Pandemic Resurgence Committee, trying to work hard to protect Delawareans each and every day. 3.5 years ago, I promised and I've delivered on the pardons change. As chair of the Board of Pardons, working with our governor's office, we have eliminated a 3-year wait down to 2 months. That's work delivered to you for those waiting for commutation or pardon. In addition, I work hard with each of you in the community to address our behavioral health and opioid deaths. I'm going to continue to do so and work with stakeholders and our community at a spirit of inclusion, working with our marginalized communities, bringing equity and strength to the education of all despite their zip code, working with small business, addressing racism and discrimination, and trying to make Delaware be the best. As I chair the National Lieutenant Governors Association, I want all eyes to continue to look to Delaware for those model programs, and I'll continue to serve with my same passion and caring. So again, please consider re-electing me in November. I will always have the open door and be accessible and available and be the true servant and try to honor the legacy of our wonderful justice who talked about faith and community. And again, thank you for the opportunity this evening.
Thank you very much. And we go to Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Danielle Hall. Please unmute, Danielle. You have 2 minutes. Please unmute. There you go.
The one time I thought I had it down pat. So thank you for inviting me to participate. It's been a real joy to be able to elaborate on the various topics. We had a very robust conversation, and I think the voting population learned a lot. I started my day out today from 50 feet above Middletown. I'm doing a restoration of a historical building there. And I thought while I was looking out over the horizon of Middletown, how remarkably different the lay of the land was from some of the other views at 50 feet in my local community. And it talked to my spirit a lot about perspective. I think that it's critical right now that we have a perspective of someone who has had boots on the ground, who can relate to our parents who are going through real struggles with their children and trying to balance their work and their life with remote learning, how the small business community has been ravaged by this pandemic and what that way back is going to look like. I think that it's crucial that we have people who have a business acumen to really be able to harness the necessary strategies to be able to move us forward back in a very positive way to economic health. I'm not quite sure we were completely there before the pandemic, but I would like to see that trend change over the coming years. And I think that we have a good opportunity to create some real advancement in education reform and in job growth here by employing strategies to bring back industrial strategies here with the environment looking the way it has and seeing how China and all of our outsourcing has affected local economies. We could actually harvest some of those energies. So I thank you again for having me here today, and I wish you a great and happy new year. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Our candidates now for Governor of the state of Delaware. The first closing statement comes from Republican Julianne Murray.
I actually thought Governor Carney was going first, but I can roll with this. And I thank you for the opportunity. And I think, I wish that we'd had more time to talk, and I think we'll have future times where the governor and I can kind of talk about policy. And, I think that, I heard him say that this is about the science, but I still, I'm going to come back to the fact that I think it's about politics. And I think that a perfect example of that is what's happened with football, that, with the high school sports, if we're following the science, now football is okay, but the kids can't go back to school. We need to get our kids back in school. And so I think that where I want to go with this is I want to kind of give you, the bullet points for me. And, if you want a governor that's going to put Delaware's economy back on track, I am your candidate. And if you want a governor that's going to keep the streets safe and is going to strengthen public safety, I'm your candidate. And if you want a governor that's going to look after the citizens' interests instead of the special interests, I'm your candidate. And, a governor that's going to make real decisions and accept responsibility, guess what? I'm your candidate. If you want a governor that is going to adhere to the Constitution, I'm your candidate. I didn't get very long to go into that, but I really believe that in this case, the governor has overstepped his bounds by coming into our homes with his mask mandate to the, if we have more than 10 people. I have a huge problem with that and the suspension of FOIA. If you want a governor that's not a career politician, I'm your candidate. And if you want to reopen Delaware, guess what? I am the candidate. I think that it's very important. People need to understand that I am about a fresh start so that all may prosper. And, I thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. I look forward to future conversations. If you want to find out more about me, my website is murrayfordelaware.com. That's MURRAY for Delaware.com. Thanks very much. I appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you very much. And we go now to the closing statement from Governor John Carney.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. You still got it. Great job tonight. I'd like to close by thanking again the Jewish Federation, the Jewish Community Relations Committee, and Hadassah for hosting this forum again tonight, as you have for so many years. The 20 years that I've been in office, this has always been the first forum to kick off the election season. It's great to be part of it again. I believe you just heard it, that we have a very clear choice in this election, both at the national level for President of the United States and here in Delaware. Do we choose to treat each other with more dignity and more respect? Or do we choose more division, anger, and hate? Do we trust the science and act with a sense of the larger community? Or do we ignore the facts, pretend COVID-19 doesn't exist, and only think about ourselves? I believe that we should listen to the experts, not ignore or belittle them in public. We should follow the science available during the public health crisis. That's just common sense. Follow the best science. The vast majority of Delawareans have taken this seriously and acted with a sense of community. That's why Delaware has not been hit as hard as some of our neighboring states. But unfortunately, some haven't taken this threat seriously enough. More than 200,000 Americans have died from COVID-19 and more than 600 people in Delaware. This should not be a partisan political issue. I'm confident that we will get through this with the approach that we're taking, following the science. If you give me your vote on November 3rd, you to follow the science and live.
All right, thank you very much, Governor. We go now to the closing statements for the candidates for representative in Congress. And the first closing statement comes from our Democratic representative in Congress, Lisa Blunt Rochester. Representative, could you please unmute? Please unmute, and you may start again. Thank you.
Almost made it through.
All right, thank you.
First of all, thank you, Michael, so much for your masterful moderation. Thank you to the Jewish Federation of Delaware and Hadassah for hosting, and to all of you who tuned in this evening. It's been said time and time again, but this truly is the most consequential election of our lifetimes, and the contrast and choices couldn't be clearer. As was said, we can continue down the path of Donald Trump's Republican Party, a party whose hallmark over these last 4 years has been misinformation and mismanagement at every turn, or we can choose a better and brighter path a path of Joe Biden's Democratic Party, where we listen to science, choose hope over fear, and build back better from this pandemic. From securing affordable, reliable healthcare, to preparing Delaware's workforce for the economy of tomorrow, or protecting Delaware's natural heritage from the existential threat of climate change. It has been my honor of a lifetime to work on behalf of Delaware in Congress. But there's so much more that we can and will do together. So I am humbly asking for your vote on November 3rd. Again, it has been the honor of a lifetime, but we still have so much yet to do. And I thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you, Representative. We now go to the next closing statement from Republican Lee Murphy, candidate for Congress.
Yes, thank you for having me this evening. You know, in 43 days, we have the most important election in our history. You know, I want to be real clear about our differences between me and our current Congresswoman. I am for life, from conception to one's natural death. I support healthcare reforms that remove government intrusion. I support religious freedom and any faith that strives to make the world better. I believe school choice ensures our children's best education. Let's teach history once again in our schools. Don't erase it, let's teach it. We learn from our past history. I believe the Supreme Court should uphold the Constitution. I support a strong military and always will put veterans first. I support funding law enforcement to protect the most vulnerable in our society. I support our right to keep and bear arms. I believe in secure borders. We need to stop the flow of illegal drugs and sex trafficking. I am against sanctuary cities. I am against socialism in all forms and believe that individuals know better than government what's best for them. I'm against the rampant welfare that creates dependency on government. Lastly, I will work to create a vibrant economy. Delaware's economy is languishing in last place in the United States. We need to change that. My first priority in Congress will bring the drug manufacturing back from China. It poses a national security risk right now. We need those manufacturing jobs in Delaware. Unlike our current Congresswoman, who speaks for Nancy Pelosi, I will be your voice in Washington, D.C. I guarantee it. I seek your support on November 3rd. God bless America, and thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And we now go to our final closing statements of the evening for the candidates for United States Senate. And the first closing statement is from Lauren Witzke.
All right, so first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to the voters, to the Jewish Federation, and to Hadassah. I appreciate you, and thank you to all the listeners as well. So this year, you're going to have an opportunity to vote for a socially conservative, pro-worker Republican. I'm here to represent ordinary Americans. I'm here to represent ordinary Delawareans who have been left behind by the Democrat Party, American working class citizens who have been left behind by people like Senator Coons. So, you know, I'm here to also address the opioid epidemic. Its number is the first thing I'm going to do when I get to Washington, is federal funding for long-term residential facilities like the one that I went through. I know how recovery works, and I know how this nation can recover, as well as bringing traditional family values back into politics, securing the American nuclear family, incentivizing marriage and family, as well as restricting immigration to the point where we make sure that no American is without a job that wants one. So we have an opportunity this year to prioritize American workers for jobs, and that is what I am here to represent, as well as bringing manufacturing back to the state of Delaware. I think everybody knows we've lost all our jobs. We've lost all our good-paying union jobs, and blood. Delawareans aren't staying. They're moving elsewhere for jobs. I want to make Delaware a place where people stay, get married, and have children. I'm also going to protect life. I'm always going to stand for, always going to protect your Second Amendment rights. So I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd. Please check out my website, www.laurenwitzke.com. Witzke is spelled W-I-T-Z-K-E. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you very much. And our final closing statement comes from Delaware Senator Chris Coons.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be with you again, and my thanks to Hadassah, to the Jewish Federation, and the Jewish Community Relations Committee. As we sit here in the midst of the high holidays, in the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's appropriate to ask, what are the values that should guide us as we seek to make progress and as we put ourselves before you as candidates for your vote and consideration this fall? The concept of healing the world, of Tikkun Olam, comes to mind. And as we work together to try and get us out of this pandemic, we should have a response that, yes, is informed by science, but is also one that is generous and open-hearted. As we work to restore healthcare and access to quality healthcare for all Americans, we also have to make sure that we're addressing health equity and the long-standing inequalities in our nation. We also have to find ways that we can come together to build back better our shattered economy and to strengthen opportunity for all Americans. As we've paused to honor the life of Justice Ginsburg, I was reminded of a quote of hers: "Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that bring others to join you." I'll just mention briefly that I had the honor of co-founding the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus this past year. Conservative Republican Senator Mike Braun joined me, and we now have 14 members. We actually did an event today, putting forward bills, bringing folks together, and laying out an agenda for how we can responsibly address climate change in a bipartisan way. Joe Biden decided to run for president following the violence in Charlottesville that made it clear to him that the soul of the nation is actually on the ballot this year. I agree with him. And as someone who has had the honor of fighting for his constituents, for working hard for Delaware over the 10 years that I've been in the United States Senate, I'll say that I would be honored, I would be grateful if I earn your vote this November, and I look forward to continuing to serve you in Washington and in Delaware. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Senator Coons. And I want to thank all of the candidates. This is always a special evening, and it was good of you to put it on the calendar to come and join us and really get the issues before the voters. It's an event we always enjoy doing, and we enjoy it mostly because you come and you make yourselves a part of it. So thank you very much. I want to wish you all the best of luck in the upcoming election. I want to turn now to Sylvia Wagman for some final comments. And again, thank you very much for having me as your host today. Sylvia?
Yes, thank you, Michael. On behalf of Hadassah and the Jewish Federation of Delaware, we thank all of our candidates for participating. And to those who were part of the forum by Zoom and Facebook Live, thank you for doing your civic duty. Good luck to the candidates and to everyone. Please be sure to vote. Have a good evening and continue to stay safe. Shana Tova, happy and healthy New Year to those in the Jewish community that celebrate.
Special thank you to all of the candidates and to Michael Sigmund, our wonderful moderator. This concludes our 2020 Candidates Forum.